Right now, somewhere, someone is looking at their savings account and thinking, I'll start investing soon, just not yet. I'll wait until the market calms down, until things feel a little safer, until the timing is right. That person feels responsible, careful, smart, even. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That decision to wait, the one that feels so cautious, might be the single most expensive financial decision they'll ever make. And the strangest part is that it won't show up on any statement. There's no line item that says, this is what waiting cost you. But it's there, quietly draining away every single month. Let me show you exactly how. Most people think of waiting as the safe choice. Investing feels risky, so not investing feels like the opposite of risk. You're protecting your money by keeping it out of the market until you're sure. That's not what actually happens. Waiting isn't the absence of risk. Waiting is its own kind of risk, a hidden one. Every year your money sits on the sidelines is a year it isn't growing, a year of compounding you can never get back. The cost of waiting doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like losing money, but it is one of the most powerful forces working against you, precisely because it's invisible. Welcome to Compound Capital Blueprint, where we explain investing concepts in a simple way. But first of all, a quick disclaimer. This is not financial advice. We're not here to tell you what to buy or sell. We're here to help you understand how this actually works so you can make your own decisions with a clear head. So let's define the two forces at war in this decision. On one side, there's the cost of mistiming, the fear that you'll invest right before a crash and lose money. That's the risk everyone worries about. It's loud, it's obvious, and it's what keeps people out of the market. On the other side, there's the cost of waiting, the growth you give up by not being invested. This one is quiet. Nobody feels it in the moment, but over time, it usually turns out to be the bigger of the two. Here's a simple way to picture it. Think of compounding like a snowball rolling down a long hill. The earlier you start rolling it, the more snow it picks up and the bigger it gets. Not just a little bigger, but dramatically bigger, because each layer builds on all the layers before it. Every year you wait to start rolling is a year of snow the ball never picks up, and you can't add that snow back later. The hill only runs one direction, forward. Let's make this concrete with two people. Meet Nadia and Owen. They're the same age, they earn the same money, and they both plan to invest the same amount each month. Owen wants to be careful. He decides to wait for the right time. He watches the news, waits for a dip, then gets nervous when the dip comes and waits some more. In the end, Owen waits 10 years before he finally starts investing. Nadia doesn't wait. She starts today. Right now, even though the timing feels uncertain and the headlines are scary, she just begins and keeps going. Let's put real numbers on it so you can picture it clearly. Both of them invest the same $500 a month. Nadia starts at 25. Owen, exactly the same age, waits until he's 35. 10 years of hesitation before he finally begins. And they both keep investing until they're 65. Now, here's the part almost nobody mentions. Even if Nadia's timing is mediocre, even if she hits a few bad years right after she starts, the 10-year head start she has on Owen is almost impossible for him to overcome. Because those first years weren't just years of contributions, they were years of growth on top of growth. Owen didn't just lose 10 years of deposits, he lost 10 years of compounding on everything he would have deposited. And compounding, given enough time, grows in a curve, not a straight line. The early years are the seeds of the biggest later gains. So how does it actually end? Using a reasonable long-term growth rate of around 7% a year. Purely as an illustration, here's roughly what happens. Nadia, 500 a month for 40 years, could end up with somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.3 million. Owen, putting in the exact same 500 a month, but for 30 years instead of 40, ends up with roughly 600,000. Now, read this next part slowly. Owen only invested about $60,000 less than Nadia over those 10 skipped years. 60,000. But he ends up with around $700,000 less. 10 short years of waiting, right at the beginning, cost him more than half of his potential wealth. Not because he invested less each month, they invested exactly the same. Only because that early money never got its extra decade to compound. So even though Owen felt more careful the whole time, Nadia ends up dramatically further ahead. Not because she was smarter, not because she timed anything, but simply because she started sooner and let time do the rest. That's the cost of waiting. It doesn't feel like anything while it's happening, and then one day you look up and realize the gap is enormous. Now, let me get ahead of the obvious objection. But what if Nadia started right before a crash? Owen dodged that crash by waiting. It's a fair point, so let's actually think it through. Say Nadia does start right before a bad drop. Her early money takes a hit, that stings. but she keeps investing all the way through the downturn, which means she's now buying at lower prices, quietly stacking up shares on discount. When the recovery eventually comes, all of those cheap shares come along for the ride. Owen, meanwhile, was in cash the whole time, feeling relieved he avoided the crash. But he also avoided the recovery that followed it, and he avoided the discount prices in between. His relief was real, his results were not. Dodging a crash only helps if you also get back in before the rebound, and almost nobody does because the rebound feels just as scary as the crash did. This is the trap in a single sentence. To win by waiting, you have to be right twice, right about when to get out and right about when to get back in. Nadia only had to be right once, she just had to start. Now, this isn't just a story. Historical data on long-term investing points to the same conclusion over and over. Studies that compare investors who started earlier with those who waited consistently find that time in the market tends to matter far more than the specific entry point. Research on trying to wait for the perfect moment shows something almost funny. Even investors with genuinely bad timing, who kept investing anyway, have historically ended up far ahead of those who stayed in cash waiting for certainty. The waiting, not the mistiming, is what did the real damage. Here's the kicker. The cost of waiting compounds too, but against you. It's not a one-time penalty. Every year in the sidelines makes the gap a little wider because the money that could have been growing simply isn't. So what's the real takeaway from all of this? The market doesn't reward the person who waits for certainty. It rewards the person who shows up and stays. Now let's talk about why waiting feels so right, even though the numbers say it's so wrong. The answer's in how our brains weigh pain. Losing money you can see, investing and watching it drop, feels sharp and immediate. But losing money you never had, the growth you missed by waiting, feels like nothing at all. Our brains barely register it. We're wired to fear visible losses far more than invisible ones, even when the invisible one is bigger. There's also the illusion of the perfect moment. Waiting feels productive because it feels like you're gathering more information, getting closer to certainty. But certainty in markets never actually arrives. The moment that feels safe only feels safe because prices have already recovered, which means you've already missed the discount you were waiting for. The right time never rings a bell. It only becomes obvious in hindsight once it's gone. So we sit and we wait, and we tell ourselves we're being smart. Meanwhile, the clock, the one thing we can't get back, keeps ticking. There's one more piece of psychology worth naming here: regret. A lot of waiting isn't really about the market at all. It's about fear of regret. We imagine how terrible we'd feel if we invested and it dropped. And that imagined future regret feels so vivid that we freeze. But notice the asymmetry. We almost never imagine the regret of having waited, the regret of the 20 or 30 years of growth we quietly gave up. That regret is just as real, often bigger, but because it's invisible and slow, our brain never puts it on the scale. We protect ourselves from the loud, fast regret and walk straight into the quiet, slow one. So let's pull all of this together. Waiting feels safe, but it's a hidden cost. The fear of mistiming is loud, but the cost of waiting is usually larger. It just never shows up on a statement. Time is the ingredient that makes investing work, and it's the one thing you can never buy back later. Every month you delay is a month of compounding gone for good. That feels completely backwards from how we usually think. We treat not investing as the neutral zero risk default, but there is no neutral. Sitting in cash is a choice too, with its own price tag, one you pay quietly for years. So what do you actually do with this? First, separate the decision from the timing. The question isn't, is now the perfect time? It's, do I have money I won't need for many years? If yes, the evidence says the best time to start is usually just now. Second, if investing a large amount at once feels too scary, break it up. Investing steadily over time, the same amount on a schedule, lets you get started immediately while smoothing out the fear of picking one single moment. You stop trying to guess the right day and just show up on every day. Third, reframe what safe means. Ask yourself not just what could I lose by investing, but also what am I already losing by waiting? Put both costs on the table, not just the loud one. None of this means markets don't drop or that any given year will go well. They do drop and some years will hurt, but over long horizons, the person who started and stayed has almost always beaten the person who waited for a perfect moment that never came. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I'll just wait until the timing feels right, remember, waiting has a price too. It's just quiet enough that most people never notice they're paying it. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments. What's the one thing that's been making you wait to start? I read these and I genuinely like to know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.